Hello everyone, it's Schmidt Dude here and welcome back. Today we have the land navigation games. This is a cool little event that we did over the weekend in Spearhead where we had about 40 people on the server and we were split up into teams of two and everyone was randomly teleported in their little teams in random locations around the map on Naziwasogo, which is an African jungle map in Arma 3, and we were given the objective to try and locate ourselves on the map somewhere within a 200-meter radius. As you know, we run with veteran difficulty, so there's no map markers of where players are. We just have to figure out what we see around us and match it up with the map. And so our constraint was it has to be within 200 meters. And once we figured that, we'd have to go to the closest LZ that was marked on the map and get ourselves out of there. So I hope you learned a little something from this video because we had a lot of fun with this. Enjoy! So once I spawned in, I immediately locate my teammate who spawned in right next to me. That's Zen. And so once we team up, immediately what I'm doing is I'm looking around and I'm making a note of what I see immediately around me. It's important to remember the starting location and what it looks like around you, because later on when you're going to look at the map and you've kind of narrowed it down, you want to be able to pinpoint where you're at from what you remember the starting location looked like. And so immediately I see trees all around me with looks like a clearing off to one side. I see trees all around behind me in almost a full arc except for the one direction out to the west. But my east and my south has general tree line, so there's some things that I'm taking note of straight away. So as you can tell there, Zen drops his backpack so that we can mark our starting location, and then we make the decision to move up to some elevation in order to get a better view and things around. It's always important to get up to elevation because obviously it'll give you a better view of your surroundings, and you might even be able to see, as you can see here, I'm pulling up my view distance, because I might even be able to see over the hills into something important like maybe a town or a radio tower or something like that. And so as I approach the top here, I notice that there's a bit of a dip in the terrain, and again that's a very important feature is the terrain features. I can tell that there's a valley down here headed what looks like to be the north, and I actually immediately spot something special. I see what looks like to be a trench, and it looks like someone else, maybe possibly another team. I wasn't sure if it was enemy that could do that, but someone had dug a trench to our northwest, and you'll see later on that actually becomes very important to remember that trench was there. And so here, once we've got a better idea of surroundings, nothing too important to note other than the general terrain and features, we return to our initial starting location almost exactly to the point by standing right up on the backpack, and then we pick a direction and we immediately just walk straight in that direction. Now the reason I choose to do that is because it is very easy to figure out your direction by your compass and generally looking around you. However, it's distances that is the hardest thing to do. Now that is important with pace counts. So what I'm doing here is I'm lining up exactly west, and there are very specific pace counts in Arma 3 depending on what stance you're in and also whether or not you're walking or jogging or full sprinting. And so I know that if I'm going in a combat stance, exactly 5 minutes is 950 meters, or every minute is 190 meters. And so by doing this, by going in exact combat stance with my gun up, or I can drop my gun but without pressing C, I know that I'm following the exact same speed, and I can accurately map out the distance that I'm walking depending on how far I'm going in time-wise. And as you notice that there are obstacles in the way, so I'm making sure that every time I adjust a little bit to the right or left, I readjust after passing the obstacle to make sure that I'm staying exactly pinpoint to our west. Now, as I'm walking here, I can tell that initially, almost about a minute in, you can see a minute's about 190 meters. So therefore, I can tell about a minute in, 200 meters in, there is a bit of a valley to the north, and the clearing continues on to the west. And so this is important because every minute or so, I usually will call out to my teammate and he can take note. As I mentioned, every minute is about 190 meters, so roughly every 200 meters I will call out, and so he can make note of how the landscape changes every 200 meters. And this gives you a very accurate depiction of the distance and the size, especially if you can see here the clearing opens up to a very big area, And so it gives us a good idea of roughly how big this clearing really is. Other than just eyeballing it, we can get a very accurate distance. And I noticed that the clearing pretty much opens up towards the west. So this is a good way of figuring out the width of the clearing, which will definitely help later on when I go to check the map. I have a good idea of how wide of a clearing I'm looking for, which is a huge asset compared to just looking for a general shape of a clearing. And as I'm walking, I'm taking note of how the terrain changes. As you can tell, I notice the clearing kind of slopes down slightly to the southwest. There was that initial valley to the north, and I can also tell there's slight bumps in the hills and the valley as well, so it's not exactly flat. These are all little things that I'm taking mental notes of so that later on, when I'm in the map, I can look through it and I can really pinpoint and see if the things I see on the map tick off the boxes of my mental notes that I have of me walking through this clearing.
You should actually be able to figure it out just from this clearing.
Yeah, this is a pretty big landmark. 2.5 minutes. Oh, the clearing opens up down to the south. Look at that, up into a hill.
Mm.
Check this. Oh god, okay. 3 minutes. This is a huge.
Keep going.
Yeah, this is a huge clearing. Are you writing this stuff down as I'm narrating it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. 3.5 minutes. Okay, looks like, I mean, it's gonna be a clearing that's like a kilometer long.
Yeah, from east to west with a big hill on the west east side.
Yep, a dip into the top right corner of the clearing, kind of bends into a U shape on the top left, and actually almost makes like a Y. And then down the south it splits up as well. Approaching 4 minutes. 4 minutes now. Yeah, it looks like we're probably just gonna get to the edge of the trees. Fifteen seconds. 5. Actually, never mind. And 5 minutes.
So you see, now that 5 minutes has elapsed, I know that we have covered about 950 meters across. And considering that we are just short of the edge of the clearing, I can tell immediately that this clearing is approximately about 1 kilometer wide, running from east to west. We started way out on the eastern edge with the east trees to my east. I decided to head west, and it happens to just be about 950 meters, give or take an extra couple meters, so about 1,000 meters east to west. And so noted that, as well as all the terrains that I noted on the way across, on my way over. I remember that there is a valley to the north, headed to the north in the northeast corner as I initially started walking. I noted that there was also a bit of an opening to the south as we were walking by, and also the general terrain features of how it dips and goes up and down into rolling hills. And so that is what I'm now looking for. I'm going to try and match the mental picture that I have of the clearing in my mind as well as what I see on the map. And so I begin to look for clearings. The first thing I want to look for is any clearings that are a kilometer wide. That is a big feature that I recognize, and then I begin to start ticking the boxes. Does it have that valley in the northeast corner? Does it open up to the south? Does it have the rolling hills? And slowly, one by one, I start going through. And this is a good way to quickly go through. Now, this might take some time. It might be very difficult to locate, and so it's always very good to have the more notes you have and the more features that you can identify, the quicker you can start
don't see it.
locating it. I noticed that in the bottom
I don't
left-hand
see it. I
corner of the
don't see
map,
it at
I'm
the
having some
moment.
trouble. I designated Zen to watch the top right of the map since those two areas were the most jungle, thick areas. So we started to look at that. I also noticed that there weren't no roads as we're passing through, so that was an important feature to keep in mind of. There were no towns, nothing like that. So I'm really just looking for dense jungle areas with clearings. I noticed that there's
I don't
nothing
think
in
it's
the
in the
top
bottom
left.
left.
Sorry, in the bottom left. So I begin to look in the top left. I'm also checking. Nothing really fits to a kilometer wide. So initially, I can't really tell
No, nothing.
where this clearing is.
We're on the western
So I'm going to cut the
edge,
video there.
and it's
Be
still
sure to
not
check
looking
out
the
part
best.
2 to see if we ever find out where we are.